They always come back, not because they finally understood your worth, but because they never thought you'd walk away for good. They come back like nothing ever happened, like the chaos they left behind somehow disappeared without consequence. But you remember the silence after the storm, the nights you questioned your own sanity, the way they looked at you when you were breaking, as if your pain was your problem alone. They return not as saviors, but as ghosts, chasing the warmth they once took for granted. They come back not out of love, but out of fear. Fear that you survived them, fear that you're no longer theirs to manipulate, and perhaps the most haunting truth of all, they don't return because they've changed. They return because you have. They return not because they've changed, but because you did. They don't come back because they've evolved. They don't knock at your door because they've suddenly grown a conscience or awakened to the magnitude of what they did to you. No, they return because you changed, because you're not who you used to be when they had access to your spirit, your trust, your gentleness. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that didn't know any better, the one who gave without limit, forgave without pause, and stayed even when staying was killing you inside. That version, the one they could manipulate, twist, wound, and still expect loyalty from, that's the one they hope to find again. But life has a way of turning fire into stone, and when they return, they're met not with the softness they remember, but with the silence they never expected. You see, something changed in you when they left. Not immediately. At first you broke. You questioned your worth, your value, your sanity. You blamed yourself for the very wounds they caused. But the silence grew into reflection. The reflection turned into understanding. And the understanding birthed strength. Quiet strength. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't need revenge. The kind that simply lets go. And it's that letting go that terrifies them. Because they thought they would be your last obsession. They thought they were unforgettable, but they forgot. Pain has a way of educating the soul. When someone mistreats you long enough, the heart eventually stops begging for kindness and starts building walls of wisdom. They come back not because they feel remorse, but because they feel distance. Emotional, spiritual, unshakable distance. The same person who once bent over backward to please them now barely lifts a finger. The same eyes that once pleaded for their attention now see right through them. That is the shift, and it burns them in a place they can't explain, because deep down they know. They know the door they once slammed may no longer exist. They know you've tasted peace, and peace makes chaos feel like poison. So they return not to heal what they broke, but to test the lock on the gate they used to walk through freely. They want to see if there's still a way back in. But what they don't realize is that the person they damaged no longer lives here. You moved, you evolved, and the echo of who you used to be is all that remains. You didn't just heal, you transformed. And now they must stand at the threshold of a soul they can no longer enter, wondering if they were ever really worthy in the first place. And that is why they come back. They lost access, not affection. They'll tell you they missed you, that they've been thinking about you, that something inside them just couldn't let you go. But what they won't say is the truth, the sharp, quiet truth. They didn't lose affection. They lost access. That's what they really mourn. That's what triggered their return. The way they once had you so effortlessly, so fully. The way they could enter your world like it was theirs to claim, without knocking, without permission, without ever earning it. You were home to them, a home they never had to pay rent for, a sanctuary they never had to protect. And when they damaged it, when they cracked the foundation, flooded the floors, and still expected to be welcomed back with a smile, they believed you would wait. They assumed your heart had no door, just an open hallway for them to wander through at will. But they were wrong, you see. They never actually loved you in the way you hoped they did. What they loved was your vulnerability, your availability, your endless willingness to see the best in them, even when they gave you nothing but fragments. And when that began to fade, when your eyes opened to the truth, they panicked. because love built on control dies the moment control is lost. That's when they start calling it love. Once it slips out of their hands, it wasn't love when they had it. It was only valuable when you took it away. That's not affection, that's entitlement. They return now not because they carry flowers of remorse in their hands, but because they're empty-handed and afraid that someone else now holds the access they wasted, afraid that someone else gets the version of you they crushed and buried, the version you resurrected on your own, stronger, wiser, less tolerant of manipulation dressed as affection. That's what keeps them up at night. Not guilt, but fear. Not heartbreak, but ego, because they never expected to be replaced in your universe. They thought their absence would create a void, not a victory. But when they walked out, something powerful happened. You stopped waiting. You stopped shrinking. You stopped hoping they'd return as someone better. And in that space you found someone else, you, the real you, the one they tried to keep small. So when they come back now, wearing borrowed apologies and carefully practiced sorrow, know this: it's not your heart they're after. It's your light, and they will say whatever they must to get another seat at your table. But they never brought anything to that table. They only took. And now that you've locked the doors, they mistake the cold for cruelty. But it's not cruelty, it's clarity, and you've earned every ounce of it. Your silence became their sentence. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You didn't write long letters trying to explain the weight of the pain they caused. No, you just went quiet, and that silence, it became their sentence, not a punishment you gave them, but a mirror they were forced to face. You see, people like that, they expect chaos, they expect resistance. They expect you to fight for them even after they've shattered you, because your reaction proves their importance. It keeps the dance alive. But when you withdrew into stillness, when you offered no drama, no anger, no tears, you broke a pattern they relied on. And nothing is more terrifying to someone who feeds on control than losing the narrative. You didn't beg, you didn't chase. You disappeared into your own healing, and suddenly they were left alone with the sound of everything they never wanted to hear. Their own guilt, their own emptiness, their own reflection. Your silence echoed louder than any accusation ever could. It stripped away the performance. No more justifications, no more emotional games, just absence, and absence is unforgiving because they didn't just lose a person. They lost the version of you that would have done anything to make it work. They lost the one who used to fill the silence with comfort, apologies, and hope. And now the silence belongs to them, and it's heavy. They sit with it. They replay moments. They wonder when you started seeing through them. They scroll through your life from a distance, looking for a sign that you're still the same. That maybe, just maybe, there's a crack in your wall. But there isn't. Because you've realized something profound. Your peace isn't negotiable. And your silence, it isn't empty. It's full of wisdom, full of boundaries, full of self-respect. It's a language they never learned to understand, because they never cared to listen when your voice was gentle and your presence was loyal. And now there are no more explanations, no more second chances, just the quiet strength of someone who finally understands that closure doesn't come from the one who hurt you. It comes from the one who chose to heal. So let them hear your silence. Let it haunt the places where your words once tried to fix what was never yours to repair. Let it remind them that some people do walk away and never come back, not out of hate, but out of clarity. You gave them 1,000 chances to value your presence, but it was your absence that finally taught them the lesson. And now they must sit in the very emptiness they created, while you sit in peace. They thought you'd always be there. Until you weren't, they always assumed you'd stay, that no matter how far they pushed, how cold they became, how much they took without giving back, you'd still be there. Waiting, holding on, hoping, because you had a heart they believed was too kind to walk away. They mistook your loyalty for weakness, your forgiveness for foolishness, your consistency for dependence. But what they didn't see was the quiet shift happening inside you. Every disappointment carved a new line in your spirit. Every dismissal planted a seed of strength. Every time they ignored your needs, you learned to stop needing them. And then one day, without a storm or a grand goodbye, you were gone. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. You stopped explaining. You stopped justifying your worth. You stopped showing up to prove you were enough for someone who never even tried to meet you halfway. And that's what shattered them. Not your anger, not your confrontation, but your absence. Your emotional absence. The warmth that once lit up every conversation with them was gone. The light in your eyes, the one that used to seek their validation, had dimmed. They thought you'd always be available. They never planned for the day you'd finally realize your own value. And now they return, stunned, trying to reconnect with the person they once dismissed. But you're no longer there. They're looking for a version of you they buried with their own hands. They want to pull you back into their orbit. But the gravity isn't working anymore. Because the moment you stopped needing them was the moment they started needing you. You've changed, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And that clarity became your freedom. You no longer cry over people who made you feel like too much while giving you so little. You no longer sacrifice your peace to earn love that was always conditional. You no longer bend just to be seen. You've become someone new, someone they can't predict, can't control, can't manipulate, and it terrifies them. Because the truth is, they were never prepared to lose you. They never thought the one who gave the most would also be the one to walk away the strongest. But that's what happens when someone finally chooses self-respect over cycles. You became the exception, the one who didn't come back, and now they are left with the echo of their own assumption, that you'd always be there. But love isn't a guarantee. Loyalty isn't eternal when it's abused, and even the kindest hearts have limits. So let them feel your distance. Let them remember the presence they once ignored, because the day you stopped showing up was the day they truly lost you. Now they return, not out of guilt, but out of fear. They didn't return because they felt guilty. They returned because they felt afraid of being forgotten, afraid that you finally saw them for what they were, not the person they pretended to be, but the one they carefully kept hidden behind charm, confusion, and convenience. The one who could break you without flinching and then disappear without a trace of remorse. No, their return is not a confession of love. It's a reaction to fear. Fear that you've healed. Fear that you've rebuilt without them. Fear that your silence is no longer sadness, but strength, because guilt would have changed them. Guilt would have made them apologize when it mattered. But fear makes them come back when they realize you've moved on. It's not love pulling them toward you. It's the fear that you no longer need what they used to offer. They feel your detachment now, and it frightens them. The emotional strings they once pulled so easily no longer respond. The old you, the one who questioned everything when they left, who cried and stayed soft despite being shattered, is gone, and they can feel it. That's why they linger. That's why they send messages cloaked in nostalgia. They come back with empty eyes, hoping your memory will betray your wisdom. But what they don't understand is that the version of you that once craved their presence had to die for the healed version to be born. You had to let go of illusions to find your reality. You had to stop chasing closure and become it. And now they are afraid, not just of losing you, but of the truth you carry, that they were never strong enough to love you right and never brave enough to admit it. Their return isn't noble, it's desperate. A last attempt to reclaim a place in a life that no longer has room for them, because deep down they know you gave more than you ever received. They know they were a chapter, not your conclusion. And they know that their absence didn't break you, it revealed you. You stopped seeing their potential and started seeing their patterns. You stopped waiting and started growing. That growth is what scares them. It reminds them that they never had the power. They only had the permission, and now that permission is gone. You no longer explain, you no longer argue, and you no longer look back. You've risen too far to be dragged into the same old fire. So let them return. Let them knock on the door they once slammed shut. Let them feel the coldness of the world they created. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming someone they no longer recognize. And the moment they realize they can't reach you is the moment they finally face themselves.